Good morning, good afternoon, and I think it is afternoon everywhere. And thank you so much for attending my latest webinar, Taming the Turbulence of the Holiday Meltdown of the Aging Family. And Keith Mininsky is with me, and we are going to help you understand the tools that you're going to need to get through this holiday. Um, this is a picture that I love. The holidays are a ritual, and any ritual can put a family over edge that, is having difficulty. And this is from August in Osage County, if you remember that. And Julia's down there, getting beaten up by excuse me, Julia is beating up Merle. So, this is actually a ritual of a death. But any time that you have, a ritual coming up where there are either drugs or alcohol, it's Merle that's been using drugs here. And she's been institutionalized a couple times, and Julie is the caretaker. You're going to have this thing. So all families are not alike. We're going to talk about that, but this is what can happen. You can also have the nearly normal family, I call it. And this nearly normal family will too go through a very upset feelings. Now, they don't, are, this grandmother's not going to get kicked to the floor. However, what happens in a nearly normal family, they have really planned ahead. They really, but when the moment comes when they've got to call you up and, get care, they too go crazy because it's the thing they dreaded the most. And but they don't have out of control fist fights or anything like that. And so we're going to talk about them as well as the dysfunctional family. So I always use an illustration, and this is a composite of all many people I've worked with over the years. And this is Samantha starting, and she just opened her Alka GCM business, but she knows no financial forecasting. She has never understood what that might be. So she doesn't have a plan for too many cases. And this is one of the things that's going to happen. You're going to possibly get a lot of cases over the holidays because the families see each other and go, oh my God, I've got to get something here, or too few cases. So she's a solo practice, but she now has no, GCM Alka job description to hire somebody that she needs, to handle more cases. She only has 10 light cases right now. And light cases to me are, I measure cases in hours. So, usually 3 to 4, they're the non-medical cases. They can, maybe go up to 5, but they're light cases. You don't have to do a lot. She's not used to what she's going to get in this tsunami. And worse, she's got no partnership with a private duty home care agency. She's a solo practitioner. So she has no gold standard private duty home care agency, no relationship with a staffing coordinator, no job descriptions of gold standard care providers that she wants over there. She hasn't prepared. So the holidays calls pour in, and she gets 5 heavy duty cases, and what I consider is 12 to 24 hours of care, is heavy duty, because they take more meds, more problems, more fights, more ADLs, everything, and she's completely overwhelmed. And so I worked with her and I restarted her. And I think there's a Rolling Stones song, Start Me Up. So I taught her the way to approach families in crisis, the 3 families we're going to talk about, and the three types during the holiday season. And the first was a 2-part inquiry, and we're going to talk about how you can do that. How to anticipate growth before it happens, because you really need to do that. You need to plan for too much and how you will be able to handle that. I got her to hire a job description, interviewing for a backup care manager, got her to partner with a gold standard private duty home care agency. I taught her financial forecasting, which I'm going to teach to you, how to work with long distance families, one of the type of families that will call you dysfunctional families, and nearly normal families, and the tools the toolkit you're going to need for holiday chaos. She survived the holiday and she prospered the next holiday. This is kind of like the 5 cases in hell she got. And it's just, an example, but you can see that somebody's beating somebody up right in the middle there. The mother is like, oh my God. And, if you've been doing care management for a while, you can never, you think you've seen it all. You've never seen it all. This is not exaggerating. I hope you know that. Um, these families can be completely out of control, and especially on ritual holidays when they gather. And everybody expects that happiness is going to be there because it's a merry holiday, and they're not happy. And so this is what happens. I'm going to fly through this. This is why I can teach you this. I, with a number of other professional care managers, wrote the Handbook of Geriatric Care Management. It's now in its 4th edition. I have been lecturing on geriatric care management for 25 years, and now I'm a teacher in a new online class that I've just launched. I'm an expert in the aging family. Keith and I were just talking about that. You need to know family dynamics, and you need to understand that aging is not about an older person. It's really about the aging family. Not that you've got to take care of them all, but you have to get them to work together to care for your client. And I'm an expert in business operations because I wrote the only manual that's been out since 2012, an operations manual. So our co-presenter, who's my fabulous person here, he helps
Thank
me
you.
with everything, is Keith Manensky. And Keith, tell them what you do. You talk.
Okay. Well, I own a practice. I'm a care manager and I own a practice in Central Florida. So I can definitely understand what Kathy is talking about, especially when it relates to family. I also teach the graduate certificate program at the University of Florida. I'm an instructor there for 3 of the classes. And then I belong to the Area Agency on Aging, or the uh, Aging Life Care Association, and different agencies and so on. But I do practice and I do teach. So in fact I taught with Kathy quite a
Oh
few
yeah,
years ago at the University of Florida. That's how
yeah.
actually how we met.
That's how
Uh,
we met many, many
yeah,
years ago.
we've
And
been
so
friends
this
ever
is
since.
another class that, or another certificate that you can really
Uh-huh.
look into too, and Keith can put more into that. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover how to sell services to a desperate caller and get the contract, how to work with both the dysfunctional, the long distance, and the nearly normal family in a crisis, how to do a family inquiry and an intake over the holiday, how to use tools, how to have a toolbox to contain holiday chaos, because you're going to be doing triage over. Just think of yourself as a medic in Vietnam or Afghanistan. You're doing triage. You're going to put a tourniquet on the blood that's spurting out of the body. But once you get all that stabilized in January, you're going to, basically work with PT, OT, and stabilize in, after that. So, it's a medical thing that we're doing here. And then we're going to go how to intervene and to calm festive fright, because these families never knew a happy holiday. And so to calm them down so they can have a holiday, move the family to New Year's stability, like I talked about, and business tools you must have to anticipate sudden growth, which can happen during the holidays. It's the biggest season for geriatric care managers. So I am talking now about your intake, your inquiry call, and this is really important. I want you to do the call in a 2-part call. And the staff who answers the first part is not the geriatric care manager director, but a very experienced staff who is an expert, only experts. And I can tell you, I've done competition surveys. I get people in cars that, can barely talk to me. can't do that. An expert, and there needs to be a way that they talk to you. They talk to the client. So they want to ask what the main problem is that prompted the call, and that's in your inquiry form and all the demographic information. And then they're going to ask tactical questions using your intake form. And they're really going to do a needs analysis, which we all know how to do, and social workers do that. So you're going to use the inquiry form and to find the out what are the main problems that the geriatric care manager is going to use in the second call to do a mini care plan to make the sale. And so what are some of these questions? One is a challenge question. What are some of the challenges you're facing with your mother, your father, whoever they're calling about, the client? And then what are some of the most important problems you would like us to solve as the caregiver? You need to ask both. And then you need to ask urgency. How soon are you wanting a care manager to be engaged to solve this problem? After that, you're going to tell them the cost. They're going to find out again the second time and offer a free complimentary consultation. A lot of geriatric care managers do this, and it's very successful. It's 30 minutes. It's for free. And the owner, who is the big kahuna, is going to call back and within 24 hours, earlier if you can, but it gives them time to do this care plan. And if they say yes, schedule, with a geriatric care manager director to call back, because they only really, the client, the adult child only wants the most experienced person. So you're going to get them for them. And in the second part of the call, and this is made by the owner director, she or he is selling solutions, problem solving. And so based on all the information that the first caller, the first, contact got, the care manager director is going to offer that she's, a mini care plan that she's made up, addressing those problems. How your agency is going to solve, the older person's problems and the most serious problem, not all the problems, and how you're going to help the caregiver, because both of those people need help, and the caregiver is the one that's really making a lot of the decisions here. And that's done to make a sale. And that's what you're going to do here, because then I hate to say this, you're going to be sort of like a car salesman. Sales is sales, but you do it in a gentler way. So you're going to ask, are you ready to move forward after that information? And with your care plan, it's much easier to do these mini care plans if you have products, and I'll talk about that. But if they say, yeah, they want to move forward, let's start. You want to get a contract out through Adobe, because it'll come right back. Don't go out and spend 4 hours between driving and doing, a geriatric assessment, and you say, sign the contract, and they say, I'm not ready to move. And then you want to ask for a deposit through PayPal or whatever, mechanism you use to get money back right away. And always do that. I know a lot of people push me back about it, but, don't lose money, and do learn how to make a sale. Okay, so we're going to talk about three types of families that, where the holidays turn into a debacle, and they ask for your help. And this is the burnt turkey scenario. The first type is a little bit up there, a preemptive, which means they've planned ahead, nearly normal family. And they're out there, but why do they call you if they've got it all together? They probably have already, because they're preemptive, they've shopped online. 90% of caregivers go ahead and shop online. They use the web. So they probably found you. And they've been monitoring their parents on a regular basis. They understand there is a point where they need to call, but they dread it. They are absolutely dreading it, and they're finally come, they're making the call, and when all the family is gathered for this holiday, and they can't delay any longer, so they call a care manager. And what are you going to do? You do what you normally would do, and you know this already. You know how to do a geriatric assessment, so you do that because you gather all the information you need. And then you spit that out, and I always say it because, the care plan, it comes from you, putting all that stress into your body and then, coming out with a care plan and to solve the immediate problem. And that's the first thing you're going to tell them because you're stemming the blood that's going to kill them with a tourniquet. And then, usually, what you want to do is divide caregiving tasks. I would say that's the number one thing that, the family needs. Who's going to do what? Um, and many times you need to anoint a new queen bee. And what I mean by that is, why do we like Queen Elizabeth and Harry that he just got married? Well, we like them because we like titular heads of things. Like the Harry and, his mother, they don't do very much, but we love them being there, even us Americans. So in a family and family dynamics, there's always the mom and dad are still the titular head of the family. And when they go, when they're not available, who's going to bake the pumpkin pie because the pumpkin pie had no sugar in it? Who's going to bake the turkey and hold the whole dinner? I don't want to do it. And so you have to realign power in the family. And that's something you can do and use a family meeting. And then what you're going to do, and this is what I was talking about, is taking all the information in the geriatric assessment, and you are a container for all their anxieties. So you're going to take all, and this is a Bunny Dibness, great. Bunny Dibness is fabulous. She's a geriatric care manager in LA. You're going to contain all this, anxiety and angst in your body, and you're going to go through core skills that I'm going to talk about, and you're going to, then, move on. And what I've done here is I've put on, there's a whole bibliography that please pay attention to. Every point that I make here, I have what you need to read about it and what YouTubes you can watch from my Geriatric Care Management One channel. It's only here and now. So, one of the major things you can do is a family meeting. And think of this family meeting as a family meeting in the hospital in the hallway. And Rita Gottok does this wonderful chapter in Care Managers Working with the Aging Family. And was head of the Stanford's, which was the first hospital geriatric care manager program. And she, in the hospital, you can't have all the bells and whistles that you would put a family meeting together for. So you want to have, a template for an agenda that you can, really fast adjust for this particular family. And the template, you need to figure out, do you know how to do facilitation? I assume most of you do, but if you don't, get someone in the, in your continuum of quick care to do it. Decide who should attend, create the agenda, but have a template and just be able to do it fast. Do the ground rules and have a list of, of regular ground rules, like, don't talk out of turn about the past, interrupt, blah, blah, blah. Have the ground rules, and then you've got to be the heavy to keep the ground rules intact. You cannot yell about what happened at at your sister when she was 5 years old. Keep the meeting in the here and now, and it's all about dividing care. Because with a nearly normal family, that's one of the few things they really need help with is, who's going to do what. And care providers, you probably are going to have professional care providers in there, but there's still care providers as family, and they can do a lot of things like, they can, come in on the weekends and take care of care, they can pay the bills, etc. You want to hear everybody's point of view, find a task for everybody, draw up a written plan, write it out, and then assign tasks for everybody and send it to each family member and get them to sign off. So this is a major thing that you can do with nearly normal families, because usually you just get them going. And you can, as they want you to, monitor on a regular basis after that. If not, they can go off on their own. The long distance family, why do they call you? They're type 2. They have enormous stress because they've been flying. It costs them a lot of money. It's a drain on their emotions. They feel guilty. They're not there, but their work and family is somewhere else, and they can't provide more care. And so there's usually an incident. The breaking point in the holidays are perfect because, either they got mom and dad out where they were, or they went to mom and dad and they see this is the breaking point for me and our family. We have to get help. We have to get care. And if they call before they go home, and they're calling in the middle of the chaos, these are some things you can use to sell services to them to add to that first call I talked about. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can read them because you're going to get a copy of this webinar tomorrow, so you'll be able to listen to the whole thing again. But the main thing is you're going to send them time and save time and money, because they spend a lot of money traveling. You can help with their stress. You're there. You're right there, and you can get caregivers. Answer, you'll be there in the hospital if an emergency happens, even though they can fly in. Help with organization. Tech tools are huge with long distance families, and there's a whole chapter on long distance families and care managers working with the aging family. But if you really want to know, what I would do is subscribe to Lori Atzit's blog, and she's a care manager that is a tech extraordinaire person. She does a great job, and she can tell you the most up-to-minute tech tools because they change in nanoseconds. You can assist with family issues, and then you just go on to what I said: 30-minute consultation. Give them a 3-month budget and get the contract signed. And again, what you're doing here with the long distance family, and you're doing with all of them, think of this as war. Really, you are in a giant accident, or like the giant fire out here in California that burned a whole town. It's triage. You're going to go in and just the immediate problems, the spurting blood, the leg that's coming off. You're going to just stabilize this person by putting on a tourniquet and giving them shots for stress, shock, excuse me. You're going to but do the same thing. You're going to you got to start with what's wrong. Geriatric care assessment, create a care plan, solve the immediate problem, the tourniquet, assess the strengths and weaknesses of all the family members. Now, probably till January, you're not going to be able to use that, but you're going to see the family in action. And you want to know who is putting blockages toward getting care, and who hates who. And that's really important because your job is to get care for the older person. Midlife sibling squabbles, you got to pick up on that right away. I hope you know they're your worst problems. The sibling squabbles are the most awful. And so, you want to pick up on that when you're doing it. Help them have a holiday. And what really, you being there, Emily Salt said this, and I love what she said, that, you want to give them hope. And hope is you. You came in, you're like the guardian angel that came in, and you're going to help them. So help them have a holiday in some way so that they can do that, plus get help for the parent. Help them make the most of the visit. You can set up a family meeting with everyone if they're there, to, delegate the care, all the things I talked about that. And then once everything's stabilized, you can go on in January and really work with it. And what that would be is weekly monitoring. These are things you ought to know. And then core skills. And core skills, I've got that in the bibliography, but this is a great concept that Steve and Bunny came up with. And first is containment. I already talked about that. Take all that negative, anxiety inside of you, and then you spin out, a care plan. But the way you do it was the second, letter. C is containment. O is objectivity. You can be objective where they can't. There is no care manager in the world who I know who solved their own parents' problems. All us old guys know, old women. You get another care manager. Even I did. So objectivity, and then resources. You got to know all the resources in your town and know them really fast. And then expertise. and expertise. We'll talk more about that later, but you really, when you're doing triage, you have to be an expert medic, and that you got to have that. So, you hire care providers, you implement ongoing care plan and check it out again, and then shared caregiving. Again, this becomes so important. Divide the caregiving, and it may not be in the case that you hire the care providers, but who comes in on a schedule for regular visits, so that you take some of the burden off of the long-term care, the main care provider, and calls, and grandchildren calling, and all the tech tools they can bring in, and e-health records. So we're going to do a poll now, and that's Keith's job, and he is going to talk to you about that.
All right, I will do that. Let me get this poll up here for you so you can see what it is there. Hopefully you should be able to see that on your screen. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger there for you. And I believe this is going to run a minute, time for a minute. So we'll just wait for the results as they come in. And we have, looks like 38 attendees this afternoon here. So we should get a pretty good response. And Kathy, maybe we can take a minute here and see if I can answer, so we can answer some questions here. If I can get to, you spoke of a person by the name of Lori, and Lori had a blog that you had
It's
mentioned.
Lori Adsit, Adsit, and she is a care manager who really, really knows technology. So just Google her, and she is an outrageous tech blog that she does very frequently, a couple times a week, and she just she knows the most up to date resources and technology, and she has a whole list of things she's done before, so you can go to what she said about putting in monitoring in the home, putting, what's the best thing to disable a stove, all those things. She's got the latest, and technology just moves, like I said, at nanoseconds. So Lori Adsit, and she was in the class, she was in my first class at Florida. She's great,
Hmm.
really great.
There was one other thing too, and I'll share the results of the poll with you, with everybody. But there was is there another way to get the handout that is provided with this webinar? Some people, it looks like, are having some difficulties with getting it or downloading it.
I'm not, that I'm not sure at, but I will make sure you get it by tomorrow. I'd have to go back and look and go to webinar. I've never had that problem before where people
The,
couldn't get it, but
the
you know,
handout,
keep bugging me to get this, because really I worked very hard on it, and because I want you to have all the resources that I can. And I'll put Lori on it. I'll go back and put Lori's contact and email in there too. So I'll do
Okay,
that.
so so Lori, the one you just whatever because some people
ADSIT. She got her,
ADSIT.
yeah,
Okay.
she got her certification through Florida too.
Okay, and you will put that in information that you're going to give to them later on because they're
I'll
asking
put
about.
it in the bibliography.
Okay.
Right now I just
Okay.
can't get off and find it for you,
No,
but
no,
she's
no.
really, really well known in the tech world.
Okay.
Really well known.
All right. Good. Now let me go ahead and share these. And there you go. There you are. There's your results of the of our poll.
Okay. All right.
We have
Thank you. So
9%.
we'll move on. I want to leave 15 minutes for questioning. So I'm speeding through, but don't forget you can get this tomorrow and you and watch it at your leisure. So you're going to have it. Okay, so now we're going to get to the worst of the worst, the dysfunctional family. This is the third, major family that you're going to deal with over the holidays and in general as a care manager. Now, the saddest thing about this is these people, back again, they were never taught to give and receive. Their parents never really taught them about kindness, about, about giving. And that's what the holidays are really about celebrating together. And, even more horribly, they don't know how to work as a team because the family did not teach them when they were younger how the siblings would work together as a team, or the family would. So, of course, that is a major problem when, you need them to work as a team to care for the parent. Not you'd probably do a lot of the care, but they need to carry out some of the care. And the worst thing is they've never experienced a normal ritual celebration. And I always tell this story, and a ritual celebration with happy, connected people. I grew up in a house my great grandfather had built, and we were in the top apartment, and the bottom apartment was a family, the Camp family. So one of the daughters was my friend, and I met her in New Orleans when I was speaking at a GCM conference. And we went out and, we're just trading stories. And she talked about her dad, and I knew that poignantly. And she said, Kathy, he ruined every Christmas we ever had. And I knew Al had. He had killed somebody in his truck among the many things he had done. And so, these things happen to these people. And so they're so brain dead and so shocked by it that they come in and they repeat the awful things that, because that's what dysfunctional families do. They, repeat alcoholism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're a handful. And if they call during or after the holiday, and sometimes they do. It won't be just the the adult child. It can be the third party that's going to call you and find out about your services, because a lot of them have third parties. Because remember, most of your clients need to be in the upper 10%. I'm not going to go into that, but that's the only way you're really going to make money, because home care is incredibly expensive. And if you keep cases over a long period of time, they'll run into home care sooner or very later. So you need to what entitled people need is products. And actually even sixth grade girls need products. That's why everybody wears the same brand of jeans and whatever. Products are what they relate to. So they want products and they want solutions. They want outcomes. So you can offer the complimentary consultation. You can offer to solve the immediate problems, but what you're going to have to deal with is denial, because these adult children and these parents have gotten through their life with denial. And if you watch the Kavanaugh hearings, you could see, and a lot of people talked about, that they put the horror in the box and they never went back to look at it. And this is what happens to people in dysfunctional families. And so denial's a way of coping. So they're going to deny what you said. They're going to deny, what's the matter with their parent, even though they called you over their parents' problems. That's the insanity of what happens here. And you have to learn how to deal with objections. They'll have a big objection about paying for care, even though they have the money. So you've got to be ready to do that. And you're going to help them. And this is another poignant part about these poor people. They have to care for a parent who did not care for them. And that is so incredibly confusing to these people. So you have to have a lot of skills to be able to do this, to help them through this. And again, basic business, get a contract and a deposit. You really need one. So the clinical skills you're going to have to, I mean, because this is a dysfunctional family on steroids. They're normally, completely, sort of crazed, but the holidays make them, they're like on steroids, because again, Judy Garland singing, "I'll be home for Christmas," and everybody's going to have a happy Christmas. They don't have a happy Christmas, and they never expect it. So they're like, ugh. So you have to have clinical skills in rejection and belittling. Nick Newcomb, who started Senior Bridge, who became Humana, who's one of the funniest people in the world, he and Claudia wrote a chapter in Care Managers Working with the Aging Family that talks about this, is the entitled, how do you work with an entitled family? Because they're demanding and they're critical, and they're going to be critical of you. They, that just like a teenage girl who calls her mother, I've been called that, how do you dress that way? Don't pick me up 2 miles away from school, and nobody can see that car. So your training, you should have at least 5 years of practice and credentials, but there's a way around that. If you are a startup and you don't have it, Nina Herndon had this brilliant way of doing it. She got Eileen Nevitt, who is a great care manager, who is an expert, and you can hire somebody just to work with a really difficult family problems with your staff. So that, that's a way to get around this. If you have somebody that they can consult with, who's an LCSW like Eileen is, an MFT, that's great. Bunny's one of those, has a background in mediation, but you don't have to mediate. You shouldn't be able to mediate. There's a whole chapter in the Handbook of Geriatric Care Managers. What you want to do is understand where they are in your community. And there's a 1-800 mediation link in the book on how to find them, and when you turn it over to mediation, because really you do. When the dysfunctional family's stuck, you can't get them unstuck. Forget it. Move them on to a mediator. And you want somebody who has extensive work in family dynamics, because that's what this is about. This is so convoluted in this kind of family, a background in aging family therapy, facilitation. Always belong to Aging Life Care, because they have so many resources for you, and really understand undue influence and abuse. Because when love hasn't been given, the way the adult children get back love is they take money. So, know all those laws. 8 tools to use with a dysfunctional family in the holiday chaos. Create a care plan always. These are the basics, but you got to do them, and they're important. Solve the immediate presenting problem. I'm repeating myself, it's important. Establish boundaries. This is a family type that you've got to establish boundaries for, because they will break every boundary. That's what they've been doing all of their life. They'll call you at 1 o'clock in the morning on the weekend. So you've got to establish a boundary by charging a lot more on the weekend. Just you've got to really, rein them in as to when they can contact you, and identify roles and conflicts. That's really important. Who is blocking care in the family and why? And, who's against who? And do a genogram. Always do a genogram in the beginning, a social work genogram, where you can tell. It's in the Handbook of Geriatric Care Management. Identify emotional patterns. So they've been repeating them over and over again, probably for 3 generations. Identify obstacles to the plan, because no matter what, they hire you and they put up obstacles. It's like, what? You're paying me money and now you won't let me do it. And act as a client advocate. Your client is the older person. It is not the family, but you've got to understand the family dynamics to get care, and always do the geriatric assessment. How to move them to January, get them to shaky stability when they're in the hospital, and the blood isn't gushing out anymore. And coach sibling rivalry and favoritism. Really understand siblings and an adult sibling rivalry. There's a chapter in Care Managers Working with the Aging Family in that. Intervene if elder physical abuse and physical abuse is there. Know where to go immediately. I mean, you should always understand where APS is and how to reach them, where, who controls guardianships or conservatorships in your state, where you go, um, the police. And then roles and conflicts. Understand again, what are the roles and conflicts here? And that's what you have to understand with this family. Understand quality of life, because what you want to give them to get going in a better direction is not only a better care for the older person physically, but mentally. So what can you build in quality of life? And Nina Herndon does this fabulous chapter on quality of life in the handbook. Care providers' needs. You do need to answer the care providers' needs, because they're usually burnout, or sometimes the care providers are, the care provider is the most unloved adult child, and they think they'll get love by caring, and you have to move that out. And then continue to realign power And that's what you're always doing. You're realigning power. I really like to realign it in a horizontal way, the way women do, but sometimes, a vertical, the man's at the top, or, whatever, that needs to be. You need to know how to realign it and what direction it should go in, and then follow up with a mediator. And I already talked about that. So finally, financial forecasting. Financial forecasting, it is in the Handbook of Geriatric Care and Management, Chapter 13, page 317. It's it's always been there for you if you have the book. So what it does, it's this miracle thing where it allows you to project the number of cases you gain each month. And how is that important? Because the amount of money you have coming in is the number of clients you have per month times your hourly rate. That's your income. And so there somebody that's contractually engaged with you, and then you have your outcome and your expenses. So it teaches you that, but it teaches you when you're going to break even, and then all it can project at 10 more cases than that, which you might get over the holidays. How many care managers do you need? And you really need to understand that, to what, how do I get help if I have too much? Anticipate growth. And when you're a solo practitioner, usually you don't think about that, but you need to have the job description, as I said, the interviewing all set, and an idea where you'd get people. And you can anticipate caseload mix here too. And in those 5 heavy cases I've been talking about, nobody should have more than that, because you are first of all, you're a professional helper. That's why they want you, an expert, personal assistant. You can't do that for more than 5 heavy cases. And 5 heavy cases have more meds, more problems, more ideals, more everything. You takes a lot of tender loving care and care on your part. You will not be able to deliver the kind of care you should be caring if you have more than that. So financial forecasting will allow you to do it. And please look at that. Okay, we have come to the end, and at the end of each webinar, I usually make offers, and I'm going to make 2 offers to you today. One is the Geriatric Care Management Operation Manual by itself, and it has 14 services and products. I'm not going to read all these to you, but it has, with each product, a procedure, so that when people call, look at your website, it says you do geriatric assessment. What the hell's that? They don't know that. But you must list products, like it's, to say caregiver assessment. It's many times the caregiver ends up in the hospital before that. Really important problems, home from the hospital. That's really big product. Learn how to do it. But the procedures are already there in the manual. Death and dying, you get people into hospice earlier than everybody does. Usually the only people that go into hospice are in the last month. You can get them the greatest care by just being involved. And so that is normally $6.99, and just for the next week, excuse me, $7.99. You can have it for $6.99, and the PayPal button is there. And then the next is the online class that I just constructed. I was working with people, and some of you were out there in teaching them the manual. But what was happening was, it took me a year to get through it, and by the time maybe 3 quarters down, everybody was so busy that they couldn't even do it. So I decided to put it online, and it's on Blackboard. I'm teaching it, so I'm going to be there. I'm going to be teaching it just the way I would one-to-one. The class includes, it's a self-paced schedule, so you can do it whenever you want. And that's really important, because people get really busy. I know that. There's 20 PowerPoint modules with audio from me, explaining what it is, and 14 products. And the reason that for the discrepancy is death and dying has 5, because there's a lot more to it. Home from the hospital has 3, because there's a lot more to it. And a marketing PowerPoint module is there, and every single product has, through homework, market how you market that product, because that's really important. And I give you, and then you interact with me through the homework, and then 20 lecture videos with each module where I will talk through, why you need it and how it's going to work. You also get the entire geriatric care management manual, the forms manual with it. And this is really important because I love this free complimentary technical support. So there, I have a high-tech, wonderful person that's worked with me for 3 years, who's in the field up in here in Silicon Valley, and anything you need, anything you don't understand, she'll do. The assignments, there's a closed Facebook group with 31 people in it right now. Um, and you can exchange information. A full bibliography I already talked about, and there will be CUs through the Association for Social Welfare Boards first. So you'll get CUs out of it, and it's normally $9.95 on the website, but now you can have it for $8.95, or if you can't afford that, you can have payment plans. And if you want to get it now, you can buy, just do it through PayPal. But if you want to do any of the payment plans, 2 months, 3 months, you can, email me, and I have to bill through PayPal in a different way to get you partial payments. It's only available for the next 7 days, the 14th to the 21st, and we're going to go into questions with Keith.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I'm here. I thought there was going to be more to it. Your email address is down there at the bottom. It may be difficult for people to see.
I'll darken it when I send it out. It's,
Okay.
crestgcm@got.net, but I'll darken it. And you can actually just go to my website, kathycrest.com, and it says contact, and you get me the same way. But I will make this clear.
Yeah,
So,
because you went through a bunch of information there in a short period of time, so I'm sure there's going to be follow-up questions coming up, about what you talked about here this afternoon.
right. And I did this because of right now. Ask questions because we have 15 minutes to do it, and it's really important. This is a time you get to say, I didn't understand this or that, or please elaborate, and I'll answer your question, and Keith can too.
Yeah, and there is one question, but before I get to that question, I want to say something as well to follow up what you said about the dysfunctional family and around the holidays and everything. And I've been a care manager for 14 years now, I guess it's been. Um, and what I found is that around the holidays, that you've had your client, let's say for a year, for 6 months, and you've put in place all these wonderful interventions, and you've gotten them a walker, and they're taking their medications like they're supposed to. And then who shows up for the holidays? But it's the brother or sister, or it's the son or daughter of your client, who now come in and are there for 5 days, a week or so, 8 days or so, 2 weeks maybe, and all your best laid plans now are undone because of all that work that you had put into. They don't like it. Mom doesn't need the walker. She's doing fine. Look at her. She's getting around the kitchen okay. So all
That's
that
really
happens,
true.
and then not on top of that, they arrange all these things that mom or dad really doesn't need at the time anyway. Maybe they could use some of those things, but they get sometimes get involved in these elaborate things that they, with all kinds of setting up different meal preparation schemes and schedules and who's delivering, and mom or dad can get around the kitchen okay. It's just a matter of a little bit of instruction more than anything. Yeah, but it's amazing. So I just wanted that happens
No,
around the
that's a
holiday.
really, really good point. I should have added that. Maybe I will next time.
Yeah, that's a lot of
We will
that
do
going
it
on.
together. Okay, come on, you
All
guys.
right,
Here
let's
I
see.
am. Here Keith
Let's
is.
Yeah,
I
here
want
we
to
go. We
answer questions.
we do we do have some. We do have some. So Lori's name, we've gone through that already. So the next question is, and by Rebecca, she's asking, on one of the slides mentioned case mix of 10 clients. Do you mean that each care manager should work with only about 10 clients, which includes no more than 5 heavy cases?
No, what I'm saying is you need a caseload mix. So in that caseload mix, there should never be more than 5 heavy-duty clients, or you can't give gold standard care. And, you can mix it up, say 15. But it's got to be a doable mix of light cases, which is non-medical, up to about probably 6 hours a day, and then take eight to about 12 is medium, so that would be a second type of case, and then the heavy case, so light, medium, and heavy. And you've got to do a doable mix of that caseload so that your care manager can really deliver gold standard care. And that's really important because you are this glorious personal assistant, and that's what they want. And they want gold standard care, and you want to give it to them.
I'm assuming that our listeners or attendees are not care managers. So having said that, I found that when you first are introduced to a new client, you develop that relationship, there's going to be some heavy care at the beginning.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
you're always going to get that at the beginning because you're doing all that fact finding, you're doing all those assessments, you're doing all the evaluations. Now where Kathy comes in, and that tends to dissipate over time. A couple of weeks usually you have enough information. You can move forward on some of the major things, put some stuff on the back burner that doesn't need to be tended to immediately or right away. Then is when you evaluate what is my acuity. That's what Kathy's talking about. The acuity, caseload acuity is what she's talking about. How involved are they going to be, and take into account, since we're talking about family dynamics here, take into account how much time you're going to be spending with that family. Not all of that time is going to be billable, so keep that in mind as well. Make sure that when you touch upon the subjects and so on, that it is in a billable format. You could be distracted. They're going to get you pulled off your subject and your topic. You keep in your own mind, keep focused and redirect those family members back to what the topic is. Remind them that every minute that passes by is another, whatever you charge, $6 in your pocket or $10, how much ever. So be focused and try to bring them back into what the discussion is as well, because they will, but that it takes a lot of time, and that's not always billable time. um,
So caseload mix is really important,
yeah.
and what Keith is saying is true. There's so many new cases that you can handle because you're going to build the most actually, in the very beginning because all those problems have to be solved, and so that's another thing to take into consideration that's critical. And it's whoever is the case manager director. Doling this out, but it's really important. And, if you're just a beginner and you have to hire somebody like you might have to do right over the holidays, you've got to really know that.
Okay, we have another question here. It is it possible to get CEUs for nurses?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I just, launched into, getting this for social workers. And then, actually before that's approved, we're going to, go through CNA. I'm going to get it
Uh,
approved by everybody. It's just a question of, you had to have the class together to
that's a
submit,
lengthy
and the
process, isn't it? That's a
yeah,
lengthy process. But
it's a really lengthy process, but I will have this first one done, hopefully ASAP. I think I've got it together, but they'll tell me what everybody's going to look for really, and I'll fix it, and then I'll just keep doing it. I've gotten CUs for many states because I've taught for so long, and I have a great assistant, Tanvi.
there you
So
go.
yeah, nurses will come in. They're not there yet, and that's why it's so inexpensive at this point because the CUs are in process with, and you will get them in retrospect. So through this first social work assessment.
Okay, here's another question and we have quite a few questions now. Thank you everybody for putting your questions in here. So let me see if I can get through them. What is a good objection? And I see handler. I'm not quite sure what that means, but here I'll read it as it's written. What is a good objection handler when they object to paying or giving a deposit? Charlotte would like to know that.
Um, Well, as far as payment is concerned, it's if you know very, very wealthy people use payment as a way to get even with you. Read Nick
Mm-hmm.
and Claudia's book. And uh, if you have billing problems with them, there's many ways to handle it. One is to, if they fight and fight and fight with you, just write it off. But one of the things is to be preemptive yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
really important to bill a lot. To bill, I would say, I'd honestly say every week, and I know that's hard. And also, to use something, I used a billing program called Time Slips. I don't even know if it's around anymore, but each bill had not only the amount of money, but, in a very precy way, written, smaller, what we did, so that they could see what we did for the bill, and that really helped. And the other thing is a deposit. It's really important to take a deposit because, for one of the reasons, is that they know this is about money, and you explain that. So when you get the deposit, you've already asked for the money. And an objection would be that we can only we can only continue the case for X number of, you got to do this way ahead of time before you start the business. And right now, do it. If you haven't, and work with your accountant to do this, and work with your bookkeeper. How long are you going to keep these people on the books? Because payment's a really hard thing. But to be proactive, bill ahead of time, like I said, or bill frequently, and find a billing program that, like Time Slips. You can Google it. I don't know if it's around. And Time Slips gives you the ability to just put the basics in there so they know. However, you can, have longer amounts that they won't be able to read, so that, if you ever go to court, you have really the total skinny of it. So there's two versions of, the explanation of billing, and I would suggest that.
All right, let's go to our next question here. Thank you, Kathy. Marcia asks, do you ever find help from a religious person, a minister, priest, rabbi, for example, to be helpful in calming dysfunctional families, or are they beyond that help?
No, I think that the community of the church is one of the best tools that you can use in geriatric care management. And myself, I'm not part of any religion, but I have found over the years it to be one of the best tools that I can use, because the community of the church is there. And so just, doing a spirituality assessment that's in the book as well, and getting people, re-engaged in the church or the synagogue, or whatever, and so that the minister, the priest, whatever, can come in. And I think, there's trust there. I was just at a board meeting, and we were talking about, starting a telephone, the depression line. And the churches are really important because they already reach out. So I would say it's great. And it's really
Yeah,
important. But if you're going to bring them in for a family meeting, you have to know if they can facilitate and understand what facilitation is. They probably can't mediate. You really need a professional mediator. But as calming, and as a real help in actually quality of life for this older person, they're fabulous. I believe
yeah,
in using churches and synagogues and any spiritual place of worship.
yeah, absolutely. I definitely would agree with that as well. And they're in touch with the community. All these
Absolutely.
places, they're very much in. And these people most likely are part of their congregation, so they may know them personally as well. Uh,
Exactly.
big
You know,
help, big help. Yes.
One of the things that I found is that one of the professionals that older people trust the most is their accountant. Why? Because they've told them everything they don't tell everybody else. It's like money and
Okay.
sex, but they've been telling them the truth about their money for a long time, and so they come out golden. And really, when you really think about it, not, religion has confession, but there's great trust in spiritual mentors. So yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. Yeah, we got a few more to go here. So,
Let's go for
Amy,
it.
yeah, Amy asks and talks about any tips on talking the older adult giver, I guess caregiver, adult caregiver. I'm sorry, the printing is so small on this. It's all right. I have to really lean into the computer here. Adult caregiver off the ledge for running to assisted living or nursing homes when the elder could succeed at home. More specifically, to the long distance children visiting and panicking frantically, looking at every option as fast as possible before they return to home. Yeah, doing that. We call it down here in Florida swooping. They're called swooping because they swoop in and change
Yeah.
everything. Then they swoop away and they're gone. Swoopers is what we call them. People come in for the holidays and like I was talking about before. Um, yeah,
Uh, uh,
money does it. Tell them how much one of these facilities cost. That'll slow them down a little bit.
Right. Well, one of the greatest products that I can tell you that I really believe in is a moving product. And what happens with moving, relocation, if you belong to ALCA, geriatric care managers are trading moving all the time. Like somebody's in Rochester, New York, and the people are moving to Florida, and they will get another care manager in Florida to be part of the move.
Yeah,
So you can get a lot of business this way. But the other thing is,
yeah.
one of the first things you do in moving is assess should they really move. And so part of the whole moving product is that assessment. How could they stay at home and have the same adaptation? So, you would just use the beginning of the moving product, and then if they're hell bent upon moving the person, um, to an inappropriate place. Who knows what would be inappropriate, but then you do it unless you really feel like it's elder abuse, and then you call out.
Right, then you stand up, right? Then you say, wait a
Yeah,
minute. My client is your mother or father, not you, and your wishes, while I take them in consideration, also have to look at what's best for that person.
yeah, yeah. I would always have a relocation product because, I mean, the best place to be is at home and not in an assisted living, but you want, and it's, you do a really objective evaluation of what is the best place for them to be, and you have a lot of power in that.
Okay, Marcia asked a question here. Hopefully, we're answering these questions. I'm hoping we are. She asked, "Can helping dysfunctional families create new rituals work to redirect them away from their obsession with the negative family history? How much is just putting veneer on plywood?" Yeah, so the baggage is there, right? I think that's what. So the baggage is there. It's just how old is it, and do you want to refinish the old baggage? I guess, right? Isn't that
Well,
helping
rituals
dysfunctional?
to me are really important. And, older people need to be involved in, I mean, quality of life with older people is involving them as many rituals as you can, because just being around the family. And then as you move toward death, rituals are really important. So introducing new rituals, I think is just fine. And that I would consider that quality of life. And, I mean, for blended families, which are not always a great idea, they create new rituals. So there's no reason why you can't do that. The problem being that a dysfunctional family change is like, next to hell for them. because
Mm.
they're really, compulsive and obsessive in so many ways and keep repeating these,
That's
terrible
the same
things that the
dysfunctional
family's
behavior.
been doing for
Yeah.
3. But if you're a really good geriatric care manager, you know family systems, you know how to deal with denial, et cetera, what I told you, then you can introduce new ways for the family to get together, and there might even become new patterns. You can't stop them from drinking, but you might have it at breakfast. I don't know. uh, I mean, I'm not saying every ritual is ruined by drinking, but out of the stress, that seems to be one of the bellwethers of a dysfunctional family ritual horror. So I'm not against new rituals at all. I'm just saying they might be the hardest thing to introduce in a dysfunctional family.
No. Yeah. They're stuck in their ways for a reason.
Right.
That's the dysfunction.
And one of the parts that I mentioned in the beginning is really true. You really, you are coming in at this, this ritual holiday. Find the first, give them the first holiday that they ever had that wasn't ruined.
There
Really.
you go.
I mean, that hope that Emily Saul talked about, you can bring such joy to a family in the middle of chaos. And, even if it's like one gathering where they exchanged some presents or smiled at each other, you don't have to do it, just just getting the triage and the band-aids and the tourniquets on is probably enough, but if you can throw that in, it's wonderful.
Kathy, in an effort to try to get all these questions, that we're going to have to keep our answers somewhat
Okay,
shorter. Okay.
yeah, one
Okay.
cent.
Okay. So Marcia asked another question here. Do your contracts include language that makes it clear to the families that fees must be paid ahead of services so that their time on your calendar is reserved?
That can be a really good idea. And deposits are really important. Getting credit cards are really important. And then, billing through the credit card in advance. Um,
Mhm.
I think is a really important thing. You need to have your contract. In the manual, I have sample contracts, but I am no attorney. So you have to have an attorney design your contracts. And that's really important. And if you
Or at
want
least,
that in there, you tell your attorney. I see no have a tight contract because
yeah,
you know,
that's
you,
that's your legal basis right there. So you want to make sure
right. And
it's covered.
receivables are a huge problem. I mean, I'm not doing that this time. I'm not going to talk too much, but I can show you how you're really screwed by by not understanding that the receivables come in 6 weeks later.
Okay. My good friend Catherine asked a question here. Uh, as the owner of a company, usually set up the case and then turned it over to one of my care managers
Right.
who would relate best to the client. Okay, is this a practice to recommend, or do you recommend that practice?
Uh,
Um, the owner
yes.
of a company to set it up and then turn it over to somebody who's best qualified to handle that particular, be it
Abs-
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you want to have care managers who, some care managers work really well with dysfunctional families. Some, you might have somebody that works really well with VA. It's really good to know the skills of, and hire people on the basis of the skills they have so that you have somebody for everybody.
Marcia asked another question here, and it's interesting. It's a good point. It sounds as if family issues are in all types of families, regardless of financial, social, or educational standing. I would say I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, is that correct? I would say yes, that is correct. So then, moms or dads PhD doesn't mean that the family is nearly normal. I would absolutely not, in my experience.
No.
No. Education does not equate with function or functional family or initials behind your names. Doesn't. In fact, that could probably make it worse in some. In
Well,
my
all you have to do is see the play Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
there you go.
So,
There you go.
literature teaches us so much about. about I mean, really, August in Osage County, you can't get a better dysfunctional family film. Uh, really, just go to the movies and you'll learn a lot. So, yeah, uh, yeah,
Okay.
there's the patina of being nearly normal because we have so many degrees, but usually they're, one of your most difficult
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah, they're the ones that sometimes come down during the holidays and want to rearrange, their mother's or father's whole life around what they think is should be done, and that's not
And
always
they know best
practicable.
because
And they
after
know best
all,
because they have the PhD, and
right, blah, blah, blah.
not saying that that happens all the time. People are people, so they're going to act
Yeah.
differently. Okay, let's get to a couple more here. Ellen asks, how much of a deposit do you recommend?
I would recommend, if you have care providers, then what essentially would be your first month, because it could be, if it's 24 hours, that's a lot of money, and these people
Mm,
are famous for not paying you. So you don't want to lose that amount of money. And then I would calibrate it to, you always, and it's in the manual and it's in the handbook, you always do a 3-month budget, for, when you start a case, and figure out what that first month would be. You're generalizing, really. You don't know how much is going to come up, but whatever that is, because you don't want to lose money in the first month. And again, it's a message that, pay up. We charge money here. This is not a social service. So that's my recommendation if you're just a solo practitioner.
Kathy makes a good point too. Remember that this is a business. Even though we're working with elderly people, frail people, abused people, in order to keep helping these people, we have to be successful at what we do. It may
And
sound
get your
cold, may sound hard, but we're not. I can't help other people if I can't pay my bills. I will leave this business if I can't pay my bills. So we
Plus,
have
you
to
need to get your kids braces. You need to get
embrace
maybe new
college,
braces. You need to take a vacation. God knows.
right?
Uh, you got to
Speaking
have money. Get the car you want. Get a hybrid. I'm not kidding. You have
speaking
to
of
feel that you
speaking of
got something
which,
out of it.
let me get to Teresa's question here. Speaking of which,
Okay,
there are very few, nearly none GCMs in my immediate area. What do you
that's great.
suggest for yeah, that is that well, that's good and bad. Because the second part of her question is, what do you suggest for managing the holiday chaos that inevitably comes with, and you're by yourself, maybe in a remote area somewhere, in a
Well, I'll
rural
give you
area, I
an
should say.
example of that in the chapter in handbook, that Liz Barlow wrote about emergencies. One of
No.
the things that you want to do is you want to establish something with a sister agency, somebody that can help you out when you're overloaded, and like, the fire has burned up Paradise, which it did here, California. Also, you should belong to a unit, and then a region in GCM. And so you ask somebody in your region, like I'm in Western region. There's a lot of people that you could ask for help, and care managers are very collegial. And then your unit is like, we have San Francisco. I live in Santa Cruz, so part of the Bay Area. You could ask somebody to help you out. They'll always help you out. I have this guy in Paradise. He's lost everything, and has only 3 clients because everybody left in the fire. And so we're using all of our resources in the Bay Area to help him, and they'll help
Yeah.
you. This is, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you this really, it just moving part. He said to Linda, a lot of us were talking to him, Linda Fredrini Johnson. He said, I always help people. Nobody's helped me. And he was crying. It was like, and I said, this is a great group of people. We help you. And so they'll help you. And that's what I would do. Be, an advocate for yourself, and go to your unit and your status as your state group.
Chapter. You're talking about with agency for life, aging life care association. Talking about ALCA's unit and their chapters. And
Yeah.
if you're not a member, what she's talking about, they have units within their chapter. Chapters usually cover regions. Florida, we have the Florida chapter. There's the New England chapter. I think the Midwest chapter. There's the California chapter, right, Kathy, and all those different ones up in the
Well, there's
Northwest.
17 states in the Western, we're
Yeah, that's a
big.
big. It's big. Yeah, it's a large. But
But
within those
still,
chapters or
yeah.
units that are groups of people who interact with each other and like Kathy was talking about, care for each other. Uh,
Yeah, just read that, read that chapter on emergencies
yeah,
because I mean,
it's in
you
there.
might
Yeah.
be sick. That's a reason to have a sister agency.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my answer for that. And Keith's.
Okay. Ellen asked something here. When you set up services like home health, legal counsel for your client, do you have them pay for the providers directly, or do you act as the middle person
Pay
for
for
that
di-
provider?
they pay directly.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean you're just one of the contractors. You don't want to run it through you.
Right. Well, that ties up a lot of money, number one, and that makes you liable for and you don't want to get in the middle
Yeah.
of somebody else's liability, number two.
No.
So yeah, you
No.
always want to make sure that they talk directly, and that also with ALFs and facilities and all that stuff.
Right,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, and you're a private duty home care agency. If you don't have home care and that you're separate billing. Um, so
yeah,
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 you
definitely,
because you have
definitely.
a hard enough time with receivables of
Yeah,
your
I
own.
agree. I think that you're really you would, unless that does become part of your business, like companion service or something. Of course, then
Yeah.
that's a different story. But
Right.
in terms of setting things up and now you can help them with the billing. I mean, it's you're not going to walk away from them, so you're going to help them with billing. You're going to help them find the correct provider, the right one. You're going to help them, look for the correct nursing home. But when it comes down to actually, and you could do some negotiating, but when it comes down to money, I step back and say, here's the person you need to talk to about signing the contract. Here's the person you need to talk to about the room rate or the service rate, whatever it may be. Uh, that's me. Sorry. Now I said I wasn't going to go on. Okay, so let's get to the next question here. Next question. Okay, Tony. Tony says, just starting. Which study information package should we buy? And just starting out, which would be the best? And don't say all of them. So which one
Well,
starting out?
I mean, there's only one book, the handbook. I mean, and I
Yeah.
didn't write the whole thing, really. It's like all of us did it. The Handbook of Geriatric Care Management. I would say again, in the bibliography, I have a whole bunch of books. But you need if you're going to practice geriatric care management, you need the Handbook of Geriatric Care Management. Believe me, I am not like raking in the money here. Don't quit your day job, as we all say. you know, I'm not making money out of telling you that. But that book, and I feel really strongly about care managers working with the aging family because you have to know family dynamics, and we've said that so many times. Um, and So, that's what I would recommend. It sounds like it's self-serving, but really it's not. It's for you.
Yeah, that is a good book. I have every edition of it ever since your first one, and now we're up to the fourth edition here.
Yeah, it's used by every class all over the country, and so
Oh yeah, yeah.
and again, it's awkward, but what am I going to say? But I wish, eventually there will be more books, but right now there isn't because it's such a small industry. It's really hard to get anything else published. It's got to grow.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. So the handbook would be the one you would recommend then for Tony.
Yeah.
I would agree. I mean, you could look at the forms and all that stuff. Maybe that, you was talking about some of that stuff and some of the stuff that you offered here in today's webinar. I think maybe he might be referring to maybe some of that stuff as well.
Oh, a
But
lot of it's from the book. A lot of it is from the book.
it's out of the
And,
book.
and I didn't write all those chapters at all. I mean,
No, no, I see that. And what does that book run? Do you have any idea what the price of that book was?
I think the cheapest is on Amazon, but you can, just shop around for it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
And you can get the third edition, if you really just want to save money. But the fourth edition has more in it, and it's more up to date. Lots of times, if you're in a college town, you can, and you can rent them. You can rent them from Amazon. You can rent it from, and the Care Managers for the Aging Family is actually just on Kindle. So, it's electronic.
Okay.
So are the manuals. The manuals, I should have said that. They're both electronic, and you can just download the forms and put your logo on it, and you can change them in any way you want, to fit what you want, because it's got to be yours. So, but yeah, better to have the books electronic. Any more questions?
Yeah, I think there's just a couple of more here. Tony again asked, what is the difference between the ALCA training and certification and your training products and modules that you offer?
Alka has a lot of webinars that are really, really good. What my manual offers are specific products, and products are services, but I see the importance of, like when I said, have a moving service, because people want to, they have a specific problem in their head, and you have the product for them. And so Alka does a whole version of what I'm doing now. I do a lot of webinars and on different topics, and Alka does them too, and I do them for Alka. So, and the
Yeah.
difference between the book and the manual is that the book is, it's really theory. It's the theory behind geriatric care management. Like, how do you do a geriatric assessment? How do you move someone? It's, an adjunct to the moving service, but, there's just a zillion parts to a moving service. How do you do a psychosocial, assessment? How do you run a business? There's a whole 13, chapter 13 is that. How do you do mediation? So it's really it's literally a textbook, and the manual is products and then procedures that you need for every business that you ever had.
Yep.
Manuals were started by McDonald's. How to
Yep.
fry the hamburger, and and it gives you the ability to sell your business because it makes it more valuable. You're just handing over, the exact way that they can do it and change it in their own way. The hamburger gets fried the right way and tastes the right way, and it allows you to expand. So you have a whole blueprint to expand, and how to do it. So it makes your business much more valuable. Plus, you can train your whole staff in it. So you have tried and true procedures that everyone follows, so that if you're not there, they're still giving gold standard care. So that's really important. And the book isn't for that. The book is to learn the field of geriatric care management.
Right. And the stuff that you're offering has a different specific need than
Yeah.
what the handbook. Yes. Yeah, I could see that
Right.
because I used the handbook for many, many years. Let's see here. I think we have one other question here by Teresa that asks, how often do you think GCMs are approached to be a care manager for an older couple versus a single adult?
I would say maybe
Hmm.
20%. And especially with younger people, care managers, are getting more involved with younger old people. And um, I have a contract in the manual for that, how to bill for it, because, it takes a certain way of billing. It's really not, you don't really bill for both, because, it becomes stratospherically expensive. But dealing with couples is, it's a particularly more difficult. It just has different ways of doing it, and
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
expensive. But a lot of times you're going to have that. I had many, many, many couples in the 25 years I did it. Um,
Yeah,
so,
so have I. I've had couples and started off with just being one of the spouses, and then it turned out to be both of them, and then one eventually probably would pass, and I would just stay on with the other one until
uh,
either there was a transition or something
exactly.
happened. Yeah, You know,
Exactly. I had a woman in Carmel because I did Pebble Beach, Carmel, which is how I know about entitled people. And her husband died. They had been married for 60 years, and the first thing she told the care provider is, "I want to go out for a Mexican meal." And the care provider asked why, and she said he would never eat it.
there you go. There you go.
So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, you would approach. I think you would approach a couple, and it would depend on really, what when you look at the situation in totality, whether or not you really would have to address the individuals, either separately or together. That, your care plan is going to have to reflect whether or not what your interventions are going to be. Is going to be for both of them or just one of them, or how that's going to work.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. I mean,
yeah, but
do you have
you get
two
a
care
sense.
plans or one care plan? And you probably have two. But they overlap in that the same thing happens in both. So it's a lot more work and you have to charge more.
Yeah.
But do you want to charge two full amounts? You probably don't. What we did for 25 years was one and a half.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't lose money. Um, because a lot of the stuff really is just for both of them.
Okay. And
Anything
I
else?
I don't see any other questions. I think we've answered them all,
Well,
or tried
thank you
to.
so much. You've been a great class. The questions are really important to me, and you poured them out because I want you to
Yeah,
get your
good.
answers. You'll be able to read this in much more detail when you get it tomorrow. It will be emailed out to you, and it'll be put on my geriatric care management YouTube site. There's a section called webinars, and you can view it there too. So. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Start the holidays yourself, having fun, and good luck with this season. And I hope you really grow because this is the season for you to get a lot of clients. Just you know, get ready.
Yeah, yeah. Get
read
ready,
the
because
read the financial forecasting chapter first.
there you go.
Okay, thank
Thank you,
you.
Kathy. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Bye bye.